For a while, try to avoid your aim. Have you ever considered Tom's fate on the Mountain Men show? Are you aware of the reason behind his abrupt departure from the mountains? Tom lives in the hills, and most people wouldn't survive there for a week. For over half a century, apart from the hustle and bustle of daily life. However, most people were unaware of the tragic backstory that lies behind all of that roughness and ferocious independence. What exactly did Tom do, then? Were there medical issues or something more unusual? To learn more about Tom's tragedy, which has gone unspoken, watch the entire film. And it's shocking what happened to him, I assure you. Items from the past, such as the supplies at the trade post and the Mountain Man. Tom was merely a man seeking freedom before he was well known as the star of the Mountain Men, and his every action was captured on camera in the forest and snow. The wild always seemed to call to Tom, despite the fact that he wasn't born in it. For a long time, Tom had been leading a life that most people would never dare attempt. After his life was featured on the television program about the Mountain Men, millions of people became aware of him. Tom had the makings of a silent hero. He enjoyed leading a straightforward, risk-free existence apart from other people. He was rugged and lived in the mountains. Not many people were aware of his story either. Great agony, physical pain, and a horrible turning point are all part of the plot, which makes it incredibly sad. But before we go into the details of what happened to Tom, let's start at the beginning of his wild odyssey. In 1943, Tom was born in Rockford, Illinois. People in the little village understood the value of hard labor. Chico his father performed in American Wild West performances during the 1880s and early 1890s. He also appeared in the well-known 1920 event The Bucking Horse Sale. Tom's early exposure to rural life ignited his interest in traditional crafts and harsh living. He looked to be born into a rodeo. When he was younger, he was already an accomplished bronc rider. He participated in rodeos across the nation while mounted on wild horses. Tom was more than just a rodeo rider. He did it for the excitement, the connection to animals, and the opportunity to prove that he was better than everyone else in terms of strength, speed, and skill. Tom became a world-class rider in the early 1960s after rising through the ranks of the International Rodeo Association. During the 1960s and 1970s, Tom participated in rodeos across the nation. He always made it to the playoffs and placed in the top 10 multiple times because he enjoyed how thrilling the sport was. Because of his skill, bravery, and calm determination, riders appreciated his name. However, riding a rodeo is extremely risky and not for the faint of heart. Years of severe falls and fractured bones had left his body damaged. Tom endured suffering that is beyond the comprehension of most people. He would immediately get healed up and resume riding. However, the agony within him made him question how long he could continue. He was aware that this lifestyle was temporary and that his body could not withstand the strain for very long. Tom's fortunes took a turn for the worst on February 14, 1970. He was 35 years old when he ended himself sitting atop a massive bull named Woolly Bugger in the chute. In order to lock your hand into the rope, you should usually drop a finger into my bull rope. He was riding the bull when the chute opened, causing a large spray to emerge. Tom was knocked unconscious when the skulls of a person and a beast collided. He placed his hand on a rope that was wrapped around the center of the bull's back to prevent Tom from moving. His legs and trunk were beneath the bull's back legs as it stepped on him and buckled violently. It was the riskiest thing that had ever happened to Tom in a rodeo ring, he later claims. They managed to cut the ropes tying him down after 2 agonizing minutes of being flung around madly. Nancy was in the stands, watching. It took 3 hours for Tom to wake consciousness after being carried off the arena on a bed. His body was covered in bruises and he had a severe concussion. The bull was not going to have a good day. The ancient Woolly Bugger also passed away from a head injury after 2 weeks. Only a month after his near-death experience did Tom return to his previous career as a stuntman, but he never fully recovered. It was time for him to go, and he had to accept it. He did just that. Due to his frequent injuries and the aging nature of the rodeo life, Tom decided to make a significant change in 1981. He quit rodeo with his wife, Nancy. He moved to the wilderness in northwest Montana, far from his previous surroundings, after packing up his belongings. It wasn't a long break or a holiday. Everything has to be started afresh. The pitch and yaw of a bronc fuels the spirit of a young guy seeking excitement. The ascent and descent of a mountain satisfies the soul of a guy seeking tranquility. Tom and Nancy relocated to the Yak Valley, which is in a rural area of the lower 48 states. The winters were bitterly cold, and there were few people in the area. That location is difficult to locate on a map. It's rugged, chilly, and wild. With the winter, temperatures can drop as low as 30 degrees below zero, and everything is covered with snow. No food stores were in the area. Neither running water nor electricity are present. Weak people don't belong there. To survive there, one needs knowledge, ability, and pure resolve. But Tom isn't afraid. He had discovered nature, independence, and serenity for the first time in his life. Together, he and Nancy started building their life from the ground up. They discovered how to live off the land, hunt for food, and chop down trees. Tom would follow animal footprints in the snow and set traps for hours. After that, he would return with furs that could be used to produce blankets, clothing, and other items. As Tom spent more time in the mountains, his old talents improved. He was skilled at hunting and catching, using the entire animal and just taking what he needed. He learned how to do it from Native Americans who used to tan animal hides using smoke and hand tools. Many were unsure of how to accomplish it. However, Tom mastered it and now does it for a living. He would tan the hides of animals by skinning them with natural materials. In addition, he manufactured his own shoes, clothing, and other items. Every day was challenging, whether it was repairing damaged tools, defending against untamed animals, or staying warm in the icy cold. But for Tom, it was fantastic. He didn't need the commotion and noise of the city or anyone else. All he wanted was the serenity of the forest, the sound of a wood burner, and his wife. The old cowboy who lived on a hill and manufactured leather the old-fashioned way soon became well known. Selling oneself was not what he wanted. People appreciated his honesty, which wasn't typically displayed. Every day she worked alongside him. They collaborated effectively. She helped Tom establish himself as a traditional craftsman, helped prepare the hide, and performed household tasks. She assisted with everything, including sewing, gardening, and keeping animals out of their cottage. Their connection wasn't a huge concern to them. It was deep and powerful. It was evident in the way they collaborated and looked at one another. The Mountain Men's Show. The more prosperous you are, the more you pursue. Tom was not going to appear on television. He never considered asking for a camera crew or becoming famous. In 2012, a brand new program on the History Channel called Mountain Men set out to find actual people leading traditional, off-the-grid lives. Everything altered as a result. They decided against having players. They valued the preservation of traditional practices. They also wanted to know about Tom's life. His world was created in a remote location far from the bustling modern world. It was an uncommon discovery. What is the purpose of the Mountain Men Show? The television program Mountain Men tells the story of tough explorers and people who have moved away from the city to live in the vast forests and learn how to make use of everything that nature has to offer, such as self-built shelters and naturally occurring food. These mountain men like the nature and all of its pleasures and hazards, but other people find winter in North America frightening. For those who wish to be in control of their own lives, the satisfaction of completing tasks alone is ideal, but there are always issues. The group must endure adversity and struggle to survive. These mountain guys are well aware that after a long, cold sleep with little food, everything they consume will be extremely hungry because of the harsh winter and the welcoming spring, which brings out the best predators to guard their young. This group's members are innovative, tenacious, and resolute, and they can manage the most difficult situations while demonstrating to viewers how they tackle common problems. Additionally, the show surprises viewers with unexpected events, such as an early winter with record low temperatures in regions like North Carolina and Alaska. Engines malfunction, fingers acquire frostbite, and the daily struggle continues until the snow melts in the Arctic or during periods of heavy snowfall. Freedom in this context entails hard effort. History demonstrates that even in the face of nature's most dire circumstances, both fresh blood and old hands must put in a lot of effort to survive in the wild. The best men ought to survive. Tom didn't want to pretend to be someone he's not because he's a private person. However, after some consideration, he came to the conclusion that the footage they captured had to be authentic. The History Channel program Mountain has a lot to teach most people. Trapping, tanning, shooting, and trail following. If you're even remotely interested in learning how to survive in the outdoors, Mountain Men is the show for you. But the show's greatness isn't limited to its fantastic tips and techniques. It's the individuals who give them. One of the most adored stars on the show is Tom Oregon. Other actors on the show included Mike Horstman, Jake Herrick, Margaret Stern, Jason Hawke, Morgan Beasley, and Marty Meyer-Rado. Brent Jameson, George Michaud, Rich Lewis, Charles Tucker, and Kyle Bell. As soon as Mountain Men debuted, Tom became a fan favorite. People admired his way of life, his knowledge of survival, and the way his abilities seemed to be from another era. People were curious. What kind of individual could spend a day laughing around a fire, skinning an elk without the need of sophisticated tools, and being outside in the snow? Tom was exceptional because he never made an effort to win over others. The show received greater attention as its fame grew. People started to seek out Tom's house as he gained notoriety in the community. Many emails and letters arrived. While some followers sent gifts or shared heartwarming tales of how Tom had transformed their lives, others simply wanted to chat. Despite their limited interactions with contemporary culture, the stars of Mountain Men, such as Tom Moore, lead quite comfortable lifestyles due to the show's popularity. It is estimated that Tom Moore has a net worth of $200,000. He earned that money by participating in the TV show and selling his colorful clothing and moccasins. For a man who used to live alone and never spoke, this was a lot. Although Tom was appreciative of the assistance, it was obvious that fame wasn't easy. Maintaining the easy life was becoming more difficult. Even though he was amiable with all of his followers and smiled for the cameras, something was changing inside of him. Tom was growing older. His body was worn out from the rodeo and decades of working in the mountains. Every season brought new aches and pains, and each winter was worse than the last. Although Tom Moore never stated it aloud, there were obvious indications that he was beginning to slow down. The awful mishap. By the time he reached his 70s, Tom was a living hero. A man who thrived in the mountains when most people would have perished in a week, and whose existence was based on hard effort. Something horrible happened, and Tom's life took a drastic turn. What started out as a typical day in the Montana wilderness became a turning point that would forever alter Tom Moore's life and usher in its most agonizing chapter. Every step was difficult and every breath felt like ice in the heart of winter. As is common in the mountains, Tom's house had a lot of snow on the roof. Anything can be seriously harmed by carrying too much weight. That morning, Tom made the decision to go up and remove the excess snow. She advised him to hold off as the weather might improve and assistance might be available later. But waiting was never Tom's cup of tea. He got his ladder, put on his old boots, and climbed up with his shovel. This time would be different, even though he had done it many times before. Tomas fell over the roof after tripping. The descent wasn't slight. He struck the icy ground hard on his side and back. When he struck something, he gasped for air and was momentarily immobile. The cause of the fall is yet unknown. It's possible that the ladder fell. The ceiling was colder than he had imagined. Or perhaps, after years of giving his body everything it could take, it broke at the worst moment. The sound of the crash sent her running outside. Tom was obviously in pain, yet he was groaning and attempting to stand. Nancy could tell he wasn't feeling well, even if he claimed to be. He was having problems breathing, his back was stiff, and his lungs were hurting. There was no ambulance around. Since there isn't a speedy means to travel to the hospital, she took him inside, covered him with blankets, and watched him closely. Despite his efforts to improve, Tom remained unusual. This wasn't simply another discomfort or bump. There was more. After that, Tom had trouble walking for a few days. In the past, he had little issue lifting firewood. Simple tasks become challenging. The agony didn't go away this time, but he always recovered swiftly. He also began to doubt himself after the fall. After decades of loneliness, grizzly bear country, and frigid blizzards, the man was now terrified to ascend a ladder. At last, he consented to visit a clinic a bit further away. According to the doctors, it was accurate. His lungs were cracked, and some of his bones were broken. While immediate medical intervention was not required, rest and treatment were crucial. One of the most difficult things for Tom to embrace was rest. When he returned home, he had changed. His pace slowed. He was less talkative. He seems to have lost his courage. For the first time, Tom considered whether his life was coming to an end. The true sadness occurs at this point. Not only does it create physical pain, but you also know that a dream you've worked so hard to achieve may finally be coming to an end. As winter wore on, the scar from the incident would not go. Living in the highlands was difficult, as they had always known. However, they are now aware of its dangers. They had so many questions that they were unable to think clearly. But what if Tom fell once more? What would happen if Nancy wasn't available? Neither their neighbors nor their children lived close enough to hear them. The accident taught Tom that he was not invincible. No matter how much he loved the woods, she was in danger. She was growing older, yet she had been strong, courageous, and devoted. She needed a respite from always worrying about the future, as well as warmth and security. For years, Tom and Nancy should not have disregarded the health risks, the lengthy winters, and the stiff joints. It was all attributed to aging. They both understood deep down that they were overstepping their bounds. They began to really consider moving away from the mountains and into a more populated area for retirement. Making this decision was not simple for him. Montana's wilderness had been inhabited for almost 40 years. He felt content, proud, and as though he had a purpose for residing there. But now there was danger on every ice day. There was risk in every profession. He didn't want to, but it was time to consider a different way of life. At that moment, Tom and his spouse made the difficult decision to leave the mountains. After the 9th season, Mountain Men fans discovered something. Tom did not appear on the show as frequently as he formerly did. He hadn't said anything significant or departed. He was slowly passing away. Those who observed were left wondering. Why does he not appear on as many shows as he formerly did? Does he have a bad feeling? Is he okay? After the accident, Tom was actually recovering and taking a peaceful vacation from the spotlight. He and Nancy decided to relocate close to their family in a location that was easier, warmer, and more convenient. Hard winters and the risk of slipping off a roof are over. Tom saw it as a shift rather than the end of his bold lifestyle. On the other side, those who enjoyed his wild off-grid life felt as though they were losing a genuine and uncommon part of him. You will die if you leave the mountain. What does that signify? Following the accident, Tom began to distance himself from the difficult life that had brought him fame and did fewer of the difficult things that had made him renowned. As he was departing Mountain Men, millions of admirers wanted to know what was happening behind the scenes. Although things didn't go according to plan, Tom's life continued on. Instead of living in the woods, it began a new, peaceful chapter in his life. Tom and his wife, Nancy, made a startling decision. They gathered their belongings and fled the Montana forests after over 40 years. For them, relocating to Florida, which is warmer, safer, and nearer to family, was a significant adjustment. It was a significant shift for someone who had lived in the most remote areas of America for nearly his entire adult life, but it was necessary. He needed his body warmed up and his bones rested. They didn't want to spend another winter there after the accident. Tom wanted to live, so he left the mountain. At last, the man who had sacrificed his life for the wild realized that one misstep may be the end of it all. Since Tom had always been a person who could manage things on his own, many fans were taken aback. He was a living example of how people may live in harmony with nature and away from noise. But Florida didn't exactly match that picture. Although Tom's life had changed, he was still Tom the mountain guy. Both his physical and mental health were impacted by the shift in his environment. For decades, Tom had always had a purpose and a reason to exist. Every day in the woods has its purpose. He was preparing for the next storm, hunting, trapping, or tanning hides. In Florida, the days moved more slowly. He continued to use his hands to make knives and other objects, but he did not feel compelled to do so immediately. He was significantly impacted by that transformation. Tom was not moaning as often as he used to, as many who knew him well saw. He missed the speed of mountain life, the challenge, and the cold. Florida was safe, but it lacked the breathtaking natural scenery. He would ponder about Montana's snow-capped trees as the sun sank. He would miss the howls of wolves in the woods and hear vehicles. To his surprise, however, Tom actually struggled with the negative aspects of celebrity. Everyone was aware of Tom's life because Mountain Men was a huge success. He made no attempt to gain notoriety. Being interviewed did not sit well with him. He made no attempt to seek assistance. He was not involved in it. He was himself. However, he gained more attention as the show progressed. Fans visited his home and he received a lot of letters. It was impossible for him to enter the town without being identified. People liked him for who he was, so at first it felt fantastic. But eventually, the attention became too much. Tom disliked being treated like a TV star and wasn't accustomed to fame. Many of the shows he appeared in he never even watched. He enjoyed living in uncertainty. The attention that followed the accident was even more difficult for him to handle. Some believed that he abandoned the mountain life due to hardship, health issues, or financial difficulties. Telling the truth got easier and harder. He believed he was going to perish in the mountains, so he left. He desired to recover and find tranquility. Throughout all of this, where was his wife Nancy? Nancy understood how Tom felt about the change in his surroundings because she had always been there for him in quiet. She had also abandoned everything. Her day-to-day activities in the wild at home. She became her friend, consoling companion, and protector as soon as she arrived in Florida. She witnessed Tom's struggle to abandon his previous life. However, when it was warm outside, his bones weren't hurting, and he wasn't worried about slipping on the ice. She could see the joy in his eyes. They leaned on one another as they always had. They didn't enjoy traveling on short trips, seeing neighbors, or attending craft exhibits, and Nancy made sure they followed their limited schedules. They sold their wares at local fairs, as they always did. In their hearts, however, they both felt a great distance from Montana and themselves. Now Tom had plenty of time to reflect. He reflected on the life they had created. Reminiscing about his early rodeo riding days, the excitement of finishing a pair of perfectly tanned hides, the blizzards, and their time spent living in the woods without a roof. He even recalled the initial call from a network director asking to use a camera to follow him. In addition, the accident reminded him of how fast things can change. He had been near bears, injured in remote areas, and exposed to potentially fatal cold. However, that one tumble in a location he believed he knew well had completely upended his universe. I think of Florida's quieter moments a lot these days. Tom wasn't upset or resentful, but I felt horrible for him. Even though he no longer engages in risky activities, Tom has never truly ceased being a mountain man. He truly meant it when he remarked, "I've lived a full life more than most." He continues to market the leather products and knives he manufactures. What matters most is that he continues to appear on the Mountain Men show. Tom gets really excited when he talks about the good old days, according to his buddies. He made no mention of his fame. Rather, he spoke living a life he had created for himself and being free. He learned everything he knew and a truth that a man will always remember from the outdoors. The mountain still lived in him even though he was no longer living in it. It is the kind of effect that persists as things change. Do you still have Tom or? Confusion, anxiety, and eventually a rumor mill driven by the internet increased as Tom or grew older. When a news outlet published a phony death notification claiming Tom or had passed away in 2020, everything reached a breaking point. It wasn't merely an error. Numerous details in the biography gave the account of his life and death a realistic feel. Many admirers posted it on social media without verifying the source because it was genuine enough. The tale went viral as people paid their respects and sorrow. The timing made things more worse. At about the same period, Tom's appearances on the show had significantly decreased. After season 9, people were aware of his diminished presence. Due to his advanced age and a genuine medical problem in season 11, when he experienced breathing difficulties in the middle of the night, many fans assumed the worst. An really concerning diagnosis was revealed in the episode. Tom's heart condition was deteriorating, and fluid was beginning to accumulate in his lungs. The incident strengthened the stories of his death, despite the fact that he received medical assistance and continued to live. Many followers believed Tom was dead because of a phony tribute and a genuine health issue. For those who had become enamored with the adored mountain guy, the situation became even more perplexing as a result of the narrative being carried by numerous news agencies, particularly those who prioritize clicks over facts. Then, in 2024, the tale reappeared with greater vigor. According to several reports today, Tom passed away peacefully in Lakeland, Florida. He was 81. They just made vague statements that left others wondering if it was indeed true, without revealing what killed the deceased. However, according to other sources, Tom Orr was unquestionably still alive and well and leading a more sedate life away from the spotlight. Despite his retirement, he remained active. So what is the truth? Do you still have Tom Orr? Indeed. Following all of his ordeals, Tom Orr is still alive and well. He is currently 82 years old. Now that he is not in the spotlight, his life is quieter. Tom gave up because he had gained knowledge, not because he had lost. A lot of reality stars aim to get more notoriety or spin-off programs. He is aware of his top priorities, which are his wife, his health, and the freedom to live his life as he pleases. Health concerns still exist, though. Tom's body is worn down by living outside all his life, frequently in hazardous and frigid conditions. It wasn't just a fractured bone accident that compelled him to flee the highlands. It was about what could have happened if assistance hadn't arrived in a timely manner. That worry remains. Tom still has a sharp mind, though. He continues to discuss his time spent in the woods. He continues to teach people traditional survival techniques. Do you believe Tom Orr is happier in Florida than the mountains? He frequently assures people, "I don't regret a thing." Which lesson has the mountain man taught you? Share your thoughts in a comment. To ensure that you never miss a story from us, please click the bell button, like this video, and subscribe to our channel. Before you go, please watch the video on your screen. Regards.